when I'm hearing Nathan, I would say, yeah, man, there's abuse, and we should absolutely call that out. And I do call that out.
So I just have a pair of glasses that record. And so I walk into the church. They had me pegged before I even made it through the front door.
47% of pastors are bivocational. The median pastor's salary in the United States is $61,000 a year.
What is Ed Young's housing allowance today? And then Ed Young, what is your salary?
But what happened to Nate and the pastor that then committed that is awful, and it rocked our entire area. But what happens is when something bad happens to you, like to me as a kid, we develop a schema for seeing everything through that lens.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And that's something that I thought about after that interview, when he was talking about, I donated to that church. And it's like, okay, but did you donate $1? And now you're demanding all these answers, maybe showing up at somebody's house with a camera crew.
And so as a donor, and as someone who attends your church while I'm in Dallas, I want to know where my money's going.
Man, if Kenneth Copeland owns a $19,000 parsonage and no, that's not good, right? But then what he's doing is now that's impacting young men who really need the church. And now they're looking at their pastor side eye and they're looking at the institution side eye.
Do you disagree with his end message that churches and pastors should be transparent with their finances if they're receiving donations to run their church?
He has a massive property in Florida that no one knows about. The congregation doesn't know about it. They've paid for that. He has bulletproof Range Rovers that he jets away from church. And we saw this. He jumped curbs to get away because he knew that I was near the property.
A lot of people upset about that. Mm-hmm. Like I had mentioned, I didn't necessarily agree with everything he said. I do like the end message that is, I think that, he wants transparency within the churches. I think that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I think they should be transparent. But, there was a lot of, outlandish claims in there, according to your talk on your YouTube channel. And so let's start.
Yeah. Well, one, again, my life experience, that is my life experience, the experience of a lot of my friends. You're coming from an environment where your father's not in the home, you're broken, there's trauma, and then you step into a church context that now I'm not just hearing good information, I actually have access to pastors and men who believe in me and are speaking life into me. And not only that, but I get to serve and learn stuff like expensive cameras and microphones. I'm being called to lead and teach other people as I'm now walking with the Lord. And so all of this has culminated, like the local church has culminated into me becoming who I am today, the husband that I am today. I discovered Dave Ramsey in the local church. I got out of debt because of Dave Ramsey, because I was going to a local church. Me and my wife were $100,000 in debt. And in 18 months, we were debt free. This is before I was doing YouTube, before I was doing music. So I am a testament of the local church and the goodness of what most local churches are. So to me, when I'm hearing Nathan, I would say, yeah, man, there's abuse, and we should absolutely call that out. And I do call that out regularly. At the same time, when you start wanting to attack the institution, when you start wanting to say that anyone who's ever taken money as a pastor is now corrupt, then I start taking issue with that. Mm-hmm. Because I know hundreds, if not thousands of pastors, and I see these men, and I see most of them aren't getting rich. 47% of pastors are bivocational. The median pastor's salary in the United States is $61,000 a year. The average public school teacher's salary is $72,000 a year. So this notion that like most pastors are getting rich, and I think it's harmful, because now what's happening is now we're utilizing very broad strokes, and it's impacting people like myself 20 years ago that really needed the church. Like the church was my lifeline to everything, to manhood, to masculinity, biblical masculinity, to financial literacy, to developing my skills, my giftings, to doing life with someone a season ahead of me that can speak into my life, right? There's so many incredible, like, practical aspects of a good local church community. And the way he spoke about it was, in my opinion, the epitome of a hasty generalization fallacy, where you're spotlighting things that are true, but you don't have enough of the data to understand that that's not reflecting of everybody. And so I paralleled it to police brutality, which if anyone should look at and say, hey, police brutality is bad. White people, black people, bad. Police should not misbehave. However, when you look at the data and you go, well, how prevalent is police brutality? Some studies say that you're more likely to get stung by lightning than you are to be killed by a police officer. Some say you're more likely to die of a bee sting than you are to die of a police officer. So now we took the police brutality thing and we said, defund the police, abolish the police. And what happened when that happened in major cities? When you mess up with the institution, when you mess with the institution and you start defunding stuff, there's ramifications to that. Are all police officers racist? No. Are there some bad apples? Yes. Should those people be held accountable? Absolutely. And so I think that same mindset of, hey, the system is corrupt, policing is corrupt. You're tinkering with things that are going to have ramifications, and they're not good. And so we saw it in major cities with law enforcement, the defund the police movement. And now everyone's kind of coming around now and going, we probably shouldn't have defunded the police. We probably should better fund the police. And when you look at the data, most people in black and brown neighborhoods, actually, I want to say 70% of them prefer more police in their neighborhoods. They want more order and protection from the bad guys, not less, right? And so I think, again, you're tinkering and you're messing with stuff, but you don't understand the ramifications of what you're really saying. And so bad police, they should be held accountable. They should go to jail if they misbehave, absolutely. Bad pastors, they should be held accountable. If they break the law, they should go to jail. But how prevalent is it? How pervasive is it? That's my concern. And I don't think the data supports that it is as pervasive as Nathan has laid out.
Do you disagree with his end message that churches and pastors should be transparent with their finances if they're receiving donations to run their church?
Yes. I think pastors and churches should be transparent, and I think most are. The question is, what do we mean by transparent? I worked with adults with developmental disabilities from 2010 to 2012. It was one of the most fulfilling jobs I had. I had to pick up a group of 3 folks. One of them had high functioning autism. One of them had high functioning Down syndrome. Take them to the gym, take them to school, take them, just kind of do their day with them, right? It was such a fun job. And I remember we had an all staff meeting. And our president and our vice president was there. And I remember finding out that the president of this organization, or the CEO of this nonprofit organization, made like $150,000 a year, and the vice president made like $100,000 a year. And as a 25-year-old kid that was struggling on the front lines doing this work, I was pissed. Like, what do you mean he's making $150K a year? We're doing the work on the front lines, right? Now, I didn't have to see those people again. I didn't have to see, I saw them once a year and that was it, right? Now imagine if I, as a 25-year-old kid, had to do life with that person every single week and hear them preach every single week and get counsel from them every single week, knowing exactly what they made. I don't think that's a healthy dynamic. So should churches be transparent and accountable? Absolutely, and most are. What Nathan is asking for is he wants to know what every pastor makes to the dollar, because if he's a giving member, and it's just a different dynamic than in the nonprofit world, right? And so, no, I don't think pastors need to reveal what they make. I don't think every staff member needs to reveal what they make. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think when you're doing life on life with people is helpful. People naturally are going to deal with envy and jealousy depending on what season of life they're in, especially if you're young and you feel like the world's against you. So no, so I think there's transparency, but there's not, I don't need to know everything about your life, know. Our church, Rhythm Church in Oceanside, you met my pastor earlier, we put out a book, like a magazine every year where you get to see exactly how much came in. You get to see exactly where the money went. You get to know how much was spent on staff, how much was spent on buildings, how much we give away to missions, how much we give away to the community. Every single thing is, but you're not going to walk in and find out exactly what my pastor makes. You're not going to find out what the admin makes. And
it's lumped in as a group.
It's lumped in as a group. Yeah, it's lumped in as a group. And I think that, by the way, the bigger the churches are, usually the more transparent they are, because they have external audits. They spend less money on staffing. They spend less money on building, because just sheer volume. And they spend way more money on giving and missions and serving the community. So, and if a church doesn't provide that sort of data, people have the agency to go to a different church, right? There are churches right now, the pastor who married me and my wife, the deacons and the elders vote on his salary. Everything is transparent. You know, he has a parsonage on site next to the church. Everything is full. So there are churches like that. And I would say if you want a church like that, praise God, go find a church like that. If you want to know where every dollar is going and you want the deacons to approve every stapler that gets bought, it's like, cool, man, mazel tov, like go do it. But when you give and this really happened, when you give a $20 donation to a church and then you email them or call them and say, hey, I want all your financial records and I want to know what your pastor makes. I think you're a little out of pocket at that point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, and that's something that I thought about after that interview. When he was talking about, I donated to that church, and it's like, okay, but did you donate $1? And now you're demanding all these answers. Maybe showing up at somebody's house with a camera crew,
blasting them and saying they're not transparent.
Demanding transparency. I mean, I don't. I run a for-profit business, but if somebody was in my front yard with a bunch of cameras and a microphone and demanding my financials, probably would have ended a lot worse than it did with wherever he was. But I do. I mean, I don't know how you would do the. I mean, I don't know exactly how you would do the transparency. I like the the grouping it in. It's all of the staff. This is how much staff we have, and this is how much is allocated to that.
And again, most bigger churches do that. They get external audits. They do that. And the funny thing is with Nate, like what happened to him was awful, man. What he went through with the pastor that mentored him, and that dude being convicted of sexual assault against his own daughter that they adopted, that rocked our entire region where we live. Like everyone was devastated by that because that's a good church. Like that was I don't even want to say the name of the church, but anyone from the region knows what church I'm talking about. That was a good church, and the pastor was a good pastor. And my friend there is still one of the pastors there, and they do an amazing job of reaching the community and helping people. And they have one of the best mental health counseling programs in the area. That's like Christian counseling where you can go to them. But what happened to Nate and the pastor that then committed that is awful, and it rocked our entire area. But what happens is when something bad happens to you, like to me as a kid, we develop a schema for seeing everything through that lens. So like I had a schema of like church is bad, church is evil. Church just wants to harm me. This is all BS. This is all nonsense. I had the same schema, and it takes a while to detangle that schema and say, well, let me not generalize and say all churches are this way. No, this was my experience, and what's the general data and the general consensus on it. And when you look at the data just doesn't reflect this conclusion that churches are all stealing, churches are all unethical, churches are right, or not all, but most. And I think that the distinguishment is any abuse is bad. Mm-hmm. Any abuse is bad, and any abuse should be called out. And I'll lock arms with Nate in a heartbeat and say, man, if Kenneth Copeland owns a $19,000 parsonage and no, that's not good, right? But then what he's doing is now that's impacting young men who really need the church. And now they're looking at their pastor side eye, and they're looking at the institution side eye, not understanding that, man, Jesus established the church. Like Jesus established both in where 2 or 3 are gathered, I'm with them, and in the local gathering, and sometimes in large gatherings. We see all the above. We see home churches in the New Testament, and we see them gathering in Acts, and there's thousands of people there. So this idea that, this is good, this is bad, it's like bad is bad, good is good. There are big churches that are doing great work. There are small churches that are not doing great work, that don't have accountability, that rewrote the bylaws, right? And so the how we speak about these things has ripple effects. And if you want to tear down the institution, that's going to come with consequences.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm with you. Minor correction, our 19,000 square foot home, not $19,000 home.
Excuse me. Sorry, thank you. 19,000 square foot parsonage.
Minor difference there.
Big difference.
But another thing that I don't think that Nathan didn't highlight it. I think this may have been. I probably should have picked up on it. I should have picked up on it quicker. But one of the things that he had said is that the 14. I think he said it was a 14-point guideline on the IRS that they go into. Mm-hmm. It something that we didn't discuss is what, and he said it, but we didn't dive into it. Is that it attracts criminals to open churches as a facade, and I should have gone down that rabbit hole more. I didn't really broach it at all. Sometimes it just doesn't hit me until the interview's over. But, I think one of the things, and I do think this is an important point, that the guidelines are so lenient and allow, no transparency, that it actually, and that's, I think, where he was going with the Hells Angels, is that it can attract criminals to build the organization in the church is actually a facade, and so that alleviates having to be transparent about where funding's coming, if it's from, who knows, drugs, whatever, right? It's
Money laundering.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A great money laundering way,
Yeah.
or a great way to launder money, and we did not highlight that enough, and it should have been highlighted enough. But what other like I said, I've gotten a ton of texts from people, emails, a lot of from people that I really respect.
Yeah.
And so I just, I really want to dive in and get, the other side of the coin here. So what other things did he?
Well, can I read some data to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's some data. So I already said this to you. Average full-time pastor salary in America is $58,000. That's the medium, right? Average teacher salary is $74,000. So most pastors are making less than public school teachers. I love public school teachers. God bless public school teachers. I prefer pastors to get paid more than public school teachers. Lifeway Research reports that nearly half, 47%, of evangelical pastors are bivocational, according to a national congregant study done in 2021. Being a pastor is hard, man. 42% of U.S. pastors said they've seriously considered leaving full-time ministry in the past year. So this is a study that was just released by Lifeway Research. Relevant Magazine just reported on it. Now here's the pros of church that don't get talked about enough. And again, as a kid that, like, if it wasn't for the local church, I would not be sitting here with you right now. I don't even know if I'd be alive right now, right? Harvard's Nurses Health Study followed 74,000 women for 16 years and found those who went to church more than once a week had a 33% lower risk of dying.
Wow.
It's a bigger effect than many medicines, showing that faith actually adds years to your life.
Wow.
So me growing up poor on welfare, single parent home, right? Man, the church gave me the framework for the healthy rhythms in my life, right? Here's another one. Harvard also found that women who went weekly were 5 times less likely to die by suicide. And both men and women had dramatically fewer deaths from despair, up to 68% lower risk. So in a world where we know deaths of despair is rising, especially you're connected to a lot of the SEAL community and right, man, there's a strong connection to deaths of despair and suicide being mitigated by people who go to church regularly, right? And for me, I had a lot of despair and I needed hope as a kid. And that's the church was a segue for that. You can interrupt on any of these if you want. 2016 study in the American Journal of Psychiatry showed that attending church reduces the risk of developing depression later in life, even after adjusting for prior mental health issues.
Wow.
Right? How many young people are dealing with incredible levels of anxiety right now?
Astronomical amount.
Right? 42% of Gen Z say that they feel hopeless about the future. 47% of Gen Z, it's higher amongst women, say that they constantly feel anxiety almost all the time.
Damn, 47%.
40%. And I can send all this data to you guys too if you guys want to link it below. Anxiety is at an all-time high, man. And there's I'm not saying these are causations. I'm not saying these are one-to-one, but I'm saying there's very, very clear correlations of people who are going to church having less rates of depression, less rates of despair, less likely to commit suicide.
Yeah, that is. I mean, all these things. When I was saying it was a big decision for me to do that, to conduct that interview. These are the things that I didn't want to take away from people. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.